Welcome everyone, welcome to Silent Stacks. Here we focus on silently stacking the bag while navigating uncertainty in real time. Welcome to my channel. I post 3 videos per month, one on the 8th, one on the 17th, and one on the 26th of each month. If you find value in my work, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's dive right in. Alright, so here we have the Bitcoin chart. Nothing has changed, we are still in the range. We've been in this chop for a few weeks now. Upper range is about 87 and the lower range is about 57. And we're still in the previous all-time high in between the range. And usually when there's a range, there's a divide in sentiment. So I see a lot of people that are bearish. I see a lot of people that are bullish. Reputable people too, people that I've followed in the past that has a pretty good reputation when it comes to calling signals. So right now there's a divide and it's clear in the charts. So let's zoom in and see what's going on here. All right, so I did mention that I developed a algo trading strategy. So I was able to put it on TradingView now. This is it. So I'll share with you a little bit how this works. Our last signal was February 28th, and then we hadn't had a good signal for a while. This trading strategy teaches you patience because the good trades doesn't happen too often. And I designed this on purpose. So it trains you to sit on your hand. And then as you can see here, it's just been choppy. So if you're going to try to scalp this, you're going to have a hard time. That's why sitting on your hand is good. All right, so I'll share with you what I see here. You see these red circles? It shows that the momentum is going down. We had an entry over here to short, and then we had an entry over here to short. And then over here on February 6th, we had a prepare to buy, which is this green dot over here. And then we had an entry over here. So this is the first bullish entry since a while. And then we had 3 of those. And then I designed it to only have 3 because after 3, it becomes washed down. So there's 3 longs over here, which is a good sign that we had found the local bottom. And that proved to be the case. And then over here on March 16 is when we tagged green. So this is a good chance that we might push higher than this. If the trend is bullish, we might start to close above this. That's what the green dot is. For example, if you look at the red dots here, there's a good chance that we're going to close lower. And then boom, we closed lower and printed another dot. We got another entry based on this prepare to sell signal. And then we got more red dots, which is a sign that we're going to go lower. And then we went lower and printed more red dots, which is a sign we're going to go lower. And then we definitely went lower and printed red dots. And then we got to prepare to buy, and then we got the buys. So you could have taken this one, you could have taken that one, you could have taken that one. And then it's a good time to just to sit in your hands. I mean, if you did good in these trades, there's no reason to overtrade. And then I did suspect that we're going to break the trend eventually, and we did over here. This was the green dot, and there's a good chance that we are going to close above this one, just like the red dots. There's a chance that we're going to go lower, and then with the green dots, there's a chance that we're going to go higher. And that's what I'm watching right now in the short term. I was not trading this because I just knew that this range is already getting dry. So because the range is dry, the moves takes time to develop. And I'm liking this structure now. We're getting some kind of head and shoulder. I don't usually trade patterns, but at least you're getting a structure. You know, we're focusing on this signal over here. And then for confluence, then I like to, I'm okay to use a pattern. I don't always use a pattern. It's just something extra. All right, so we have the tag green over here. And then here we got the first buy signal, but it's a gray one. So it's a weak one, but we're starting to get the structure forming over here. If you see this gray arrow. And then we got a trend buy over here, which is a good start. But then you start to see it all choppy. This one you got a counter sell and a counter buy. So it's very choppy. But if you notice, the signals are gray. So I don't take the gray signals too seriously. It just helps me see the structure and what is happening. So as you can see, we're chopping. And now when we look at structure, it's looking good to me. I've seen Bitcoin have this structure a lot. We have a shoulder, we have a head, and then we have a shoulder forming over here. It's possible. And it gives you a good risk reward because you could put a stop loss over here. So this is something that I will dabble with. Why? Because we tag green, so there's a good probability that we're going to go higher than this. So we might revisit 75, and we're forming a common head and shoulder. I don't trade patterns often, but when it aligns with what you're looking for, then it could give you a better probability. So this is something that I would consider taking. And that's a 14% gain to about a 3% loss. So I will consider this. I'll give it a little bit more time. So as I mentioned in my previous video, if you look at lunar eclipse, it could help you measure when the liquidity comes. So I'll show you what I mean over here. This is all the lunar eclipse dating back from Bitcoin Genesis. So as you can see, during the lunar cycle is when Bitcoin struggles. Okay, we have a huge correction over here. And then once the phases ends, we rally. And then once the next phases starts, Bitcoin struggles. And then when it ends, it rallies. And then when it comes again, it struggles. And then when it ends, it rallies. And then the lunar eclipse starts forming, it struggles. And then when it ends, it rallies. So the last one will be in March 3rd. So here we are, March 3rd. So are we going to rally from this point? It will throw a lot of people off because, a lot of people are measuring the bottom from the top. So they say there's a certain number of days that it takes from Bitcoin top to the Bitcoin bottom. And a lot of people are saying around October. They say it's about 1 year from the top to the bottom. But what if I could say that we've been in the bear market since January of 2025? So if we do January 2025 to where we are now, it's been over 400 days. So it's been over a year already. And it aligns with the eclipse theory. Okay, so this is the last total lunar eclipse. And if you look at the past, usually the last lunar eclipse are the bottom. If you look in 2022, it marked the bottom. If you look at 2019, it marked the bottom. If you look at 2015, after the last one, we rallied. So this one was the first lunar eclipse phase for Bitcoin. Yes, we had a rally, but then we had a struggle after it was going up only. And then during the last lunar eclipse, boom. So it's very interesting data. So it will throw a lot of people off. Bitcoin is designed to do what most thinks it won't. This cycle was already very elusive. Not a lot of people navigated the cycle well. It was basically a Bitcoin show. So it was a Bitcoin only show, and pretty much the only alt that kept its gain was XRP, besides Bitcoin. So if you invested in Bitcoin and XRP, you came out winning regarding your ROI. So it threw a lot of people off because we didn't really have a true alt season. And I thought it was interesting, something that Waters Above mentioned. Every time Bitcoin touched its previous all-time high, it's usually a good entry. So I have an idea here. It's a far-fetched idea, but I am considering it. Okay, so this is Google. Google had a rally, then it reached the top in 2021, then it had a bear market, and then it had a rally again, breaking previous all-time high, finding structure. It had a double bottom over here in the previous all-time high, and then boom, it had a rally. So this would be an interesting idea, and this will throw a lot of people off. So I put this Google fractal in the chart over here just to show you what I'm talking about. You have the previous all-time high of Bitcoin back in 2021. Then we had the bear market, and then we rallied past the all-time high, and then we found a bounce here. This will be bounce number one. It wasn't perfect, but you get the idea. And then now we are in the second bounce. So this is an idea that I'm entertaining just because of the lunar phases. So in past history, the last lunar eclipse tends to be the Bitcoin bottom. And not a lot of people are saying this is the bottom, which I like to see. Because remember, Bitcoin does what most don't expect. Top traders that I respect are ready to short, the 80K zone if it occurs. But what if it just busts right through? That will throw a lot of people off. But then again, we will have to see how we react to the zone. Short term, it does make sense for it to push a bit higher. Of course, if we capitulate further into the 57K zone, it's always possible, and I would definitely be a buyer. But zooming in the short term, it looks like the trend wants to push higher, just to bring more excitement in the crypto space. And then once there's excitement in the crypto space, then market makers could decide to nuke the price afterwards. So yeah, there is a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty is actually good in the market because if things are very, very certain, then it's hard to make money in it. So in this space, you make money in the uncertainty, even though it's uncomfortable, even though sometimes you don't know what's going on. I learned to program myself to see uncertainty as a good thing because uncertainty gets people away from the charts. And when most are away from the chart is when the move occurs. All right, so this is an idea that I've been playing with. So I'm watching. March 3rd, which is the last lunar eclipse, usually in history, it marks the bottom, and then Bitcoin rallies from there. Short term, we're getting a green tag, so there's a good chance that we will push higher, at least to a couple candle closes above 75K, which to me looks like a decent risk reward, but we do need patience. Okay, we could definitely violate this structure over here and then start a deeper correction. All right, so anything is possible, but March 3rd to me is looking like a very strong potential local bottom. It's forming a flat over here, which I like to see. During the March 3rd, you're supposed to be patient and wait about a month before and a month after for any significant move to occur. And this is where we are now. So we are approaching a breaking point. I wouldn't mind a little bit more bearish energy to really get in a better entry, to get people to think that we're going to go lower to 60, 57K. A lot of people are watching this area. So if we go a little bit lower, bears are going to get really, really excited, really, really loud, targeting here. And then what if we just, do some kind of triple bottom and then we go? Is this always accurate? Of course not. For example, look at over here. We printed some green dots, but the only difference with this green dot is that we printed a prepare to sell as well. And then we corrected. We found structure in the EMA, and then we got a signal over here, this green arrow, and then we got some structures over here. And we held, and then boom, we pushed higher and closed above the green dots, and we printed more green dots. But then here we got the entry, the sell entry from this prepare to sell. So we got a prepare to sell here, and then we got a sell entry over here. So we got the green dots, which is with this strategy is that whenever you get green dots, you want to target higher. But because we got some red entry, this one gives you a stronger hierarchy. So you could ignore this green dots and start building the shorts over here. And then boom, we crashed down, printed red dots, we got another entry, and then the rest is history. So this is what I'm watching. We're still in the chop zone. I'm probably just going to sit on my hands until I get a clear signal. And I probably won't long here because it's looking a little bit too obvious. But maybe I will. I'll see how the week turns out. All right. But a lot of people are watching the zone, like I mentioned. So I'll be monitoring this level. So to sum it up, the March 3rd eclipse is giving me strong confidence that the local bottom could be in. And then we'll be messing around with this area over here. And it will bring more confusion. Bears will be confident. Oh, look at the structure. And then bulls will be euphoric. So this will be an interesting level because there's still going to be a lot of confusion. So there's already a lot of confusions in this lower floor. And then even if we pump higher, there's still going to be some confusion. And what if we just rally up higher and higher? I'm not going to give a price target. I'm just saying mainly to violate this zone over here. And yes, even create a higher all-time high. That will throw a lot of people off. So this is an idea that I've been monitoring. So I am open-minded to us going lower, but the more time that we spend in this floor over here, aligning with the lunar eclipse, it's giving me more confidence that we may actually make a new all-time high. A lot of people can't even fathom the idea because of all the things going on in the economy and the tensions of war and things like that. But the more time we spend down here, the more confident I become that we're going to go to at least 85K. And then once we're 85K, we'll see how price action behaves. Okay, so we're taking levels by level. And there is uncertainty, but this is how we operate. We silently stack in the uncertainty. All right, so if you have exposure in the market, just sit on your hands, This is a decent time to accumulate. But if you have no exposure and you want exposure, there is no reason for you to wait for perfect entry. This is definitely the time to start dollar cost averaging. Even if we go lower to like 50K, you won't care if you bought it at 70 or 50. And what I'm saying is there's a chance that we won't even get 50. Because what if Bitcoin pulls a Google? So I'm not making any calls right now. I'm just giving you ideas. And the longer we are in this range, the more that I see this idea playing out. Okay, so we have to take it week by week and see how things play out. All right, so let's take a look at XRP now. Every time XRP goes to the 200 EMA, it rallies to the 50. So we have it in 2018, touched 200, rallied to the 50. And then 2022, touched the 200, rallied to the 50, and it got stuck here. All right, so here we are now in 2026, still around the 200. So let's zoom in here and see what this indicator is showing. All right, So XRP tagged green earlier. It had its first tag green on February 14. And then it had other green tags around March 16, about 1 month later. All right, the thing about XRP, it did have a prepare to sell. So now there is some strong sell, but I wouldn't take this too seriously. Why? Well, honestly, just market awareness. I'll show you what I mean. XRP doesn't really do so well with the sell signals with this strategy. For example, right here. So sometimes it does very well. So these were good signals, but then sometimes when you see that the structure is a little bit lower than higher, as you can see, the signals doesn't work as well. All right, so we had an example over here, pushed higher. Here was pretty decent, but it still pushed higher. So the thing about failed signals is that even the failed signals, you could look for structures within. Because look, we started getting the sell here, and then we got one here, and then we pushed higher, and then we got another prepare to sell, and then we started to build some kind of bearish structures over here. So that's why I'm not too worried about this prepare to sell. Because if Bitcoin's supposed to push higher, then I think there's going to be trading around here, and it's going to get messy. So I wouldn't take any signal as face value because some structure takes time to play out. All right, and if you try to short too prematurely, then it won't really end well. So this one played out well. This one played out, but not very long. Could have held for a few hours, but you would have eventually got obliterated. This one's actually decent. So this one I probably would have taken because we had two prepare to sell. So we had one prepare to sell here, and then we had another prepare to sell here, violating this. And if the signals are violated and you have a bearish thesis, which I was kind of bearish over here, then there's a good chance that it's going to revisit the signals that got violated. And that's what he did here. So we had a signal over here. You just had to prepare for the stop out here. And then boom, that was a nice move. And then we got another one here, played out pretty decently. We had another one over here, played out pretty damn decently. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, we got to prepare to sell, but I'm not taking it as face value because just intuition, it's saying that we will push from the 200, which is sitting about 140, towards the 50, which is sitting about, you could round it to $2. And then I think it's going to be pretty choppy here because here I sense that there's going to be a lot of confusion. It's going to be pretty messy. Okay, so we could stay in this range for months, bears and bulls fighting. So what if we do something like push higher and then we go back down and then we do this M thing? This pattern will throw a lot of people off and bring a lot of fear because it is a lower high. And then from here, we either nuke or we actually push higher. So this part is a good chance that it will happen just because of the lunar idea. If Bitcoin pushes to 80K, then this could easily happen. And also that in past history, XRP likes to react with the 200. So if XRP is to push higher to the 50, then I sense some kind of trading range over here. And it'll get messy, and it could last at least a month. And then here will be the defining moment. This is going to be a huge divide. Bears are going to be loud, bulls are going to be loud, and then the deciding point will be either down or up. All right, but we'll see how this plays out. Let's look at the weekly. Weekly is looking pretty ugly, below the 200. It's still a zone. So the bearish scenario will go to the 114. I'll be a buyer around here. This will bring a lot of fear. A lot of people are going to target 80 cents. I'll be a happy buyer around 114, 115. But my number one thesis is going to be the 200 weekly EMA idea. So as long as we stay around this zone, I will anticipate a higher push, and then we'll see how this plays out. And of course, if we capitulate, then be prepared to execute accordingly for what is best for you. I will definitely be a buyer. So we talked about several ideas. This is not me saying it could go up or it could go down, but it is me saying it could go up and it could go down. So we'll have to see how it'll play out. In the short term for me, the longer we stay in this range, the probability goes higher that we will push higher. And then if we go lower into this range, I will be a buyer. So we'll see how it plays out. And then in the 85K zone, there will be a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of shorts piling up. Heck, I might even entertain the idea of a little bit of a short like that. And then we'll see how that plays out. And then for XRP, the longer we hold the zone of the 200, it gives me more confident that we're going to push towards the 50. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found value, make sure you like the video. If you want more clarity, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I post 3 videos per month, one on the 8th, one on the 17th, and one on the 26th of each month. So if you like my work, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. You can also follow me on X at 24/7stacks for quicker updates. I'm growing this account, so feel free to engage with this account. You're in the right place at the right time. Until next time, take care.